Good morning everyone. Today we are going to discuss about activities in integrating listening with other macro skills like speaking, reading, writing, and viewing. So we're going to start with pre-listening. So what are pre-listening? Pre-listening are things learners do before listening activity in order to prepare for listening. These activities have various purposes including pre-teaching or activating vocabulary, predicting content, generating interest, and checking understanding of tasks. In the classroom, pre-listening tasks include discussion, questions, true or false statement, vocabulary work, prediction tasks, and brainstorming that topic. Next is tape script. So what is tape script? Tape script is a recording of spoken material or the printed text of a recording. Next one is listening. Listening is a skill of critical significance in all aspects of our lives. So there are 5 stages of listening. What are those? Number 1, receiving. Number 2, understanding. Number 3, evaluating. Number 4, remembering. And number 5, responding. A particular communication technique that requires the listener to provide feedback on what he or she hears to the speakers by the way of restating or paraphrasing what they have heard in their own words. So there are common barriers to active listening. What are those? Number 1, trying to listen to more than one conversation at a time. Number 2, find the communicator attractive or unattractive. Number 3, you are not interested. Number 4, not focusing. Number 5, feeling unwell or tired. Number 6, identifying rather than empathizing. So number 7, sympathizing rather than empathizing. Number 8, you are prejudiced or biased. Number 9, you have preconceived bias or ideas. Number 10, you make judgments. Number 11, previous experiences. Number 12, preoccupation. And number 13, having a closed mind. Next is the listening map labeling. This labeling map is a map that connect to the information that you hear in the listening to the gaps in the map. In some maps, you are given a list of words and you have to choose the correct word to fit in the map. Now, we're going to discuss the importance of listening. So what is the importance of listening? Listening is one of the most important skills you can have. How will you listen has major impact on your job effectiveness and on the quality of your relationship with others. For instance, we listen to obtain information, we listen to understand, we listen for enjoyment, and we listen to learn. So clearly, well, listening is a skill that we can all benefit from improving. So there are levels of listening activity. Number 1, selective listening. Selective listening can be very selfish listening. It's a level of listening that focuses on someone's personal agenda. Number 2, defensive listening. Defensive listening is a destructive. It's a higher than selective listening because the listener is at least listening to the whole point, but they are listening with the intent to deflect, deny, or defend their position. Number 3, attentive listening. Attentive listening is sometimes referred to as active listening. Should be our normal mode of operations as learners or listeners. Number 4, empathic listening. Empathic listening is not trying to fix, analyze, or figure out the other person. You're not applying judge and jury as to what was right and who was wrong. Next is listening comprehension. So listening comprehension is the precursor to reading comprehension. So it's an important skill to develop because learning comprehension is not just about hearing what is said, it is the ability to understand the words and relate to it in some way. Example, when you hear a story read aloud, good listening. Comprehension skills enable you to understand the story, remember it, and discuss it, and even retell it in your own words. Now, there are listening activities for every learning style. Kinesthetic student. Kinesthetic student can learn when they are in beat, when they move and groove. Example of activities for every learning style is the number 1, Simon Says. Simon Says is a great go-to listening game. It's practically perfect for teaching with total physical response. Number 2, listen and draw. Isolates listening from speaking. Simply have your students take out a blank piece of paper and give them instruction on what to draw. Number 3, running for the mount. On your go, one student from each group runs to the recording and listens to part of it. The student must remember what he heard and run back to the group and dictate it to them. Number 4, map it. Students listen to the directions and find their way along a map to a secret location. Number 5, hearing is believing. Listening to a dialogue, play some background noise that matches the location of your scene and have students make prediction about what will be in the dialogue. Number 6, back-to-back interview. Have two students sit back-to-back to remove the visual clues from their conversation. Next is identifications. What is identification? Identification is the condition of having the identity, example of a person or object, established. Next is selection. At least two different conversations going on at the same time. It is the process of tuning in to the stimulus you will perceive, depends on heavily on your background, your attitude, your age, and interest. Now, there are kinds of or types of retention. What are those? Number 1, short-term retention. Short-term retention is what we do when we retain the content for less than 60 seconds. Say for example, when your teacher is having a lecture and you don't want it to remember, you have to use the short-term retention. You have to retain it for yourself for less than 60 seconds only. So, equivalent to 1 minute. Next is long-term listening. Long-term listening usually occurs in lecture situation, while the process is called lecture listening. Number 3, similar to long-term lecture listening, typically includes anything we retain longer than 10 minutes. So anything we listen that we retain for more than 10 minutes is lecture listening. Next is information search. Information search is a stage process of information seeking behavior in library and information science. It describes the thoughts, feelings, and actions of the searcher and is often used to describe student stages. What are those stages? Number 1, initiation. Initiation is the information seeker recognizes the need for new information to complete an assignment. Number 2, selection. The individual begins to decide what topic will be investigated and how to proceed. Number 3, exploration. Information on the topic is gathered and a new personal knowledge is created. Number 4, formulation. Information seekers start to evaluate the information that has been gathered. Collection. Information seeker knows what is needed to support the focus. Number 6, search closure. Individual has completed the information search. So next is passage. What is a passage? A passage is a portion or section of a written works, a paragraph, a verse, etc. Now we're going to proceed on picture communications. So there are 6 phases of pictures communications. Phase 1, how to communicate. So in how to communicate, individuals learn to exchange single picture for items or activities they really want. Phase 2, distance and persistence. Still using single pictures, individual learns to generalize this new skill by using it in a different places with different people and across distances. Phase 3, picture discrimination. Individual learns to select from 2 or more pictures to ask for their favorite things. Next is word order. What is word order? It refers to the way words are arranged in a sentence. The standard form in word order is subject plus verb plus object. Next is reflecting language. Reflecting language is learn language. Learning is likened to a chemistry experiment. There is probably no room for teacher reflection as chemical reactions are mostly predictable within controlled environment. Then the holistic view, teacher reflection involves thinking critically about one's assumptions, experience, thinking philosophy, and worldview And this reflection is essential for every teacher to improve and develop. Next is theory and practice. Some of the tools that promote reflective teaching include teaching journals, per observation, and recording of a lesson. So another skill is matching conversation with a correct pictures. With text is one strategy to assess English language learners and primary students with reading comprehension and vocabulary development. Students can match pictures in a range of ways. These include the following. Number 1. Match pictures with words. Depending on the choices of words, students are able to practice beginning and ending sounds using this activity. Next is match the pictures with sentences. The students read the sentence and then finds the sentence that best tells what the picture is about. Number 3, practice main idea. Students read a sentence and then find the picture that the sentence describes. Number 4, connect the content. Find the pictures that correlate to the subject that the class is studying. Next is identifying people in a photograph. One common challenges in genealogy research is how often people neglect to label their photos. Now, there are 5 ways to identify people in all photos. Number 1, determine the time period. Try to determine when the picture was taken. Number 2, ask your relatives. Number 3, use message board on social media. 4, compare to other photos. And 5, using Google image search. Next is giving directions. You know how to ask for directions, but what happens when an English speaker asks you for directions? Questions you may hear examples: how do I get to Main Street? Where is the closest gas station? If you know the way, use basic English to offer directions. Short phrases are best. Speak slowly and use very careful pronunciation. Spell out word if necessary. Example: the easiest way is to, then continue to directions, and the best way is to. Example of the formula is go plus direction. Example of direction is right, left, down, up, and through. Next is identification of places. The relationship between people and places is characterized by affective and cognitive dimensions defined respectively as place, attachment, and identification. Place, attachment, and identification are 2 distinct but correlated components. Semantic contents related to the environment perception are described in respect to different levels of attachment and identification. Next is looking for a job. Whether you recently lost your job or are ready to jump ship from your current one. So there are tips on how to look for your jobs. What are those? Number 1, tap your network. So everybody knows somebody within your existing network. There are probably 3 jobs that would be appropriate for you. But the people who could help open doors to those jobs just haven't thought of you. Number 2, connect with alumni. We generally like people who have something in common with us, who share the same values and habits. 3, attend the events. This includes one hosted by charities and professional organizations. 4, use LinkedIn to maximum effect. LinkedIn is a powerful tool. Easily connect with the right people. Search your target market based on your industry, qualifications, university, and interest. Connect with people who interest you. 5, check job boards. Many companies and recruiters use them to find the right candidates. 6, contact headhunters. Senior level professionals are recruited almost exclusively through recommendation or by headhunters. Next is following the main points of dialogue and narration. So what is dialogue? Dialogue is one of the most difficult literary devices to master. When the characters start talking to each other, the story comes to life. A reader can gain a far deeper understanding of a character through their words and actions than they can from the narrative text. A couple of sentences of dialogue can reveal much about the background of a particular character. A dialogue should do reveal emotions, Draw the reader into the character lives. Show the reader how the character reacts to different situations such as pressure, intimacy, hate, love, or fear. Move the story forward. Every piece of dialogue should have a purpose. Hint at or tell upcoming events. Give balance to a story after a long section of narrative. 5. Increase the pace of the story. Contribute humor. Reflects the changes in emotions and lifestyle of your character. Next is identifying a situation by listening to a dialogue. So attentive listening is about building rapport, understanding, and trust. It involves hearing and understanding and then letting the other person know by summarizing the speaker point in your own words before proceeding with your spoken contribution. Listening for the purpose of participating in genuine dialogue. Number 1. Emphasizes conversation as a two-way activity where the focus is on the other person's view as well as your own, creating shares views that come from the conversation. Open-ended, even playful in its approach, and requires a modesty, humility, and trust. 3. Focus on the conversation that is happening between the participants, not what is or we may assume to be going on in the minds of the parties involved. Next is the comprehension of short narratives. Important purpose of reading literature is to move beyond the literal text to construct an interpretation of what the text conveys about the condition and nature of the world. Indicated that the urgent and the theme instructions were more likely to lead to essays with more interpretative references than plot and ambiguous instructions. Next is understanding detailed descriptions of two pictures. Image descriptions just give more details and allow someone to learn more about what is an image that goes beyond. Features of image. To describe when composing image description, it may seem difficult to decide what to include. Here are the features that can be included in image description. So what should be in image description? You should include number 1, placement of objects in image. 2. Image style. 3. Colors. 4. Names of people. 5. Clothes if they are important detail. 6. Animals. 7. Placement of text. 8. Emotions such as smiling. 9. And surroundings. Next is can you follow directions? So more often or most of the time, student cannot follow the instruction that is given to their students. Say for example, in a test, sometimes we forget to write our name or we cannot follow the direction. We know the answer, but since we do not follow the directions, our answer might be wrong. So there is an example of can you follow direction. Here are examples of can you follow directions. This is a time test. You will have 3 minutes. Do not begin until you have read all the questions. This is only an example, but we can show it in a video later. Number 1, you are not to share your answers with anyone. Number 2, read all the statements before you do anything. Number 3, print your name in the upper right hand corner. Number 4, circle the word you in a sentence. 2, draw 5 small squares in the upper left hand corner. Put an X in each square. Put a circle around each square. And there are a lot of direction and so on. And I hope you can understand my video. Thank you.